could be called empirical, even though we haven't fully outlined it yet. Then on the other hand, it's empirical that the world is shrouded in darkness, and we could go into that a lot more too. How can these two things coexist? It has to be the case, if you've got God of love, that this intelligence does have a plan. So somehow, kind of like what the caller was saying, there must be a reason for things happening in the way that they are now. That our job is to find out what it is and get to a better place than this sort of dark world we live in.
First-time caller, John in Norfolk, Virginia. Hey, John, welcome.
Hello. Good morning, gentlemen.
Morning to you.
Morning.
Okay, keep this sweet and simple, I guess. But, sometimes when things happen and I start feeling bad, and then I start thinking bad about whoever or whatever that may have happened, and then bad things happen about what I think about.
You've created
does that make
this.
sense or whatever?
Yeah,
I don't know
it's the law of attraction. You're creating this yourself. You are what you believe. Jeff, it happens all the time.
Oh yeah, absolutely. If somebody just takes the time to turn off the autopilot consciousness and be a little more aware of themselves. What are you thinking about from moment to moment? What are you feeling from moment to moment? You'll see the correlations in your life. Oh, I was worried that my child would get sick deep down. If I didn't pay attention to my inner feelings, I would have noticed that worry, but I wasn't. Bam, there they are. Is that Is that some kind of clairvoyance where you had a message from the future that you knew your child was getting sick? Maybe that's part of it too. Or did you tell them intentionally create it because of the worry? These things are going on within us all the time. We have to be aware of them.
What happens to a little kid when a parent goes up to them and says, "Don't spill your milk"? They spill it.
Absolutely.
They've created that image in their brain.
Yeah, good one.
Let's go to Santa Barbara, California. It's John's turn on Coast to Coast. Hey, John, go ahead.
Oh, hi.
Hey.
George. Hi, George.
Hi.
And Jeff, very, very nice guest tonight.
Yes, he
Thank
is.
you.
Yes, I think you're very, you're highly enlightened person.
Oh, thank you.
And that you have, you have a lot of wisdom. And I wanted to ask you, I had an experience I've been around Buddhism for about 30 years, and I had an experience with this form of Buddhism. There's a chant involved in this, and I did it, and this has happened about 3 years ago, and I was doing this chant, and I did it for many hours as a form of meditation, and then all of a sudden, I started to not feel my body. I couldn't feel anything. I felt like I was weightless. And at that very moment, the chant wasn't coming out from my mouth anymore. It was coming out from my solar plexus. It was like a fiber that was just like a laser that was jetting out of my system. And at that very moment, I experienced complete clearness. I realized infinity. I think I entered into a state of enlightenment, and it was absolute joy and bliss. And every preconceived notion in my mind at the moment was completely gone. I was absolutely clear.
Mm-hmm.
Have you had that kind of experience?
Similar, yeah. That sounds more like a Hindu-style meditation rather than a Buddhist-style, but the results are often similar. I mean, Carly, didn't you think when you had that, like, this is what you're made for? This is where I'm supposed to be. We all can do this,
Have you ever run into, Jeff, any psychic vampires, negative energy people?
I thought I did. I tried crystal scrying about 2 years ago. When you stare into a crystal, very, very dark room. And boy, does that work. I couldn't believe how that's a real technology. And I did it 3 nights in a row, and each night I had progressively worse and worse dreams. It was the third night was extremely traumatic. It's almost like sleep paralysis. A Black Helicopter Radio does a good job discussing sleep paralysis. The Snow White Witch.
The old hag syndrome.
Yeah, it looks just like that witch in the Walt Disney Snow White film.
Yeah.
I thought that I investigated the issue because I didn't think crystal scrying is evil itself. What I was told is it was probably a programmed crystal, or somebody was trying to do soul theft or something. Some vampirism of some sort was, where my life force is being extracted. Was, you obviously don't use that crystal, and it did seem to be the case because I tried it since with different crystals, and once on the moon and once on a little pond near my house, and it didn't happen. The negativity. So yeah, that was to answer it quickly, your question, something like that was going on in that case. It was very, very disturbing, to say the least.
Text in from Karen from Utah wants to know if a person lives unhappily, will their universe ever have a chance of changing for the better?
Oh yeah, absolutely. We're supposed to be creatures of joy. If anybody listening to this show doesn't understand that right now, you are missing I can prove this. Humans are meant for ecstasy. Like I said earlier in the show, your physiology. What is a sexual orgasm? It's ecstasy. Put on Pachelbel's Canon later today, and you'll be filled with joy. DMT comes into your brain every night through the pineal gland. It goes into the fetus in the womb at 49 days, or as Professor Strassman just showed. I mean, we are made for ecstasy. We're made for meditation. We're made for joy. If you think that your life is not joy, you are a victim of corporatism, the plague of civilization. You just simply need to reorient your perspective, and the events of your life will follow. Your life will turn around.
What about the philosophy, Jeff, of living every day like it's your last?
Yeah, that's a lot of. I like to be a little bit more. I'm not saying that's fabricated, but unfabricated, and I'm sort of a go with the flow kind of guy. But yeah, that's an interesting idea. Think if you did that, George. Everything is so special. Think of being with your child and thinking this is the last moment. You will hug that child with perfect love. I mean, that's absolutely beautiful. So while that's not a philosophy I practice, I can only imagine the incredible results people would have doing that.
All right, next up, Sabrina in Seattle, Washington. Hi, Sabrina.
Hello. I just wanted to tell your guest that a lot of the ways that I look at things are very, very similar to what he's talking about. I'm a witch, and...
You're a witch?
Yes.
All right.
And our way of behaving correctly is a statement, any harm none, do as thou wilt. So
sounds like you're out there flying around somewhere.
No, not quite. No, I'm just someone who's really, really aware of my surroundings. I know the world that I live in.
Well, you're tuned in. You're tuned in, and she's probably a Wiccan, which is a religion, and they believe in a male-female god, and there's nothing wrong with that, Jeff.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the gods have genders. The Great Spirit in Native America was often like a grandfather. I tend to be a gender. God to me is a force, just from what I've experienced. It just seems to be it says in the Bible, God is light. It says in Buddhism, Nirvana is infinite light. And that's what I think I've seen in my meditation experiences. So I like to take out gender, a lot of it, just because of what I've experienced. But if somebody else has gender in their concept of God, fine. I don't think that causes any harm. But I don't know much about Wiccan, but I know a lot of those practices were very much touted by, I think we mentioned the Golden Dawn group earlier, Aleister Crowley and Matheson and so forth. And those practices, two things I'll say, those are real and those are powerful. And the second thing I'd say is you have to be very careful with those, because those that get to the real aspects of the powers behind the cosmos. Yeah. I mean, symbols.
That's dark, isn't it?
Well, I don't think I think they can be used for dark, and I think it has been. Some of the Aleister Crowley types and so forth obviously have. I mean, these are the people that coined the term New World Order. But I think that, if they're using principles of the cosmos, if the cosmos is created by an intelligent designer, they're just using a love-filled cosmos for darkness. That would be my guess.
San Francisco, Cliff Stern, west of the Rockies. Cliff, take it away.
Hey, guys. Thanks for taking my call, George. Jeffrey, you've mentioned that you've mentioned your children a few times on the show, and I have a 6-year-old, and she's been asking me just random questions about God, maybe stuff she hears in school. We don't go to church, and growing up Catholic, you know, I have one story to tell. But, you know, I try to, I mean, I guess my question is, like, what's your approach to children in trying to spur their imagination or explain the notion of God to them?
Wow, that's a wonderful question. I have a 6-year-old too, actually. That's my oldest, and we tell him what we've experienced. We just, like I say, my wife is very much on the same side of the street with me on all this, and we just say, you know, my wife is more Christian, I'm more Buddhist, but we sort of meet at the middle and share each, and we just say, hey, you know, to my daughter, my 6-year-old, here's what we've experienced. And it does seem, you know, I've experienced, you know, Daddy's experienced light everywhere. And I'll tell my daughter, Amelia, if you know, close your eyes and pray long enough, you will see coming from within you a light that is everywhere. And that's God. And I mean, I just tell them what the Bible and Buddhist texts literally say. I don't put any mythological interpretations. I just get really literal with it because I think that's what is going on. And they seem to really appreciate that. Of course, we do that, you know, you have to find your own interpretation deal as well. We do go to church regularly here every Sunday in Ann Arbor, really wonderful interdenominational church. And so, I mean, I think that teaching these religious principles, I mean, religion and science aren't different. Only when you think you have a bogus view of science or a bogus view of religion do you think those two things are in opposition. I mean, we just tell our children that religion's about freedom as long as you approach it from an experiential perspective, and it's all about joy, not about manipulation and so forth.
Jeffrey, the atheist has come a long way, hasn't he?
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, my friend. I appreciate you being on the program. Jeff Grupp, his books, The Telescreen, Corporatism, Telementation as well. Websites, antimatterradio.com, zenflowerradio.com as well. Our next Coast to Coast program, Linda Moulton Howe will originate live at a special UFO Congress in Phoenix, Arizona, and I'll be there, not in Phoenix, but here while she's there. For Dan Galante, Luis Oliveira, Tom Danheiser, Lisa Lyon, Lex Lonehood, Sean Ladouceur, Stephanie Smith, Ross Mitchell, George Knapp, Ian Punnett, and Art Bell, I'm George Norrie. Somewhere out there on Coast to Coast AM, we'll see you on our next edition. Until then, be safe, everyone.